My name's Chris Phillip.
My name is Paul Anderson.
My name is Mark Boyd.
Hello, my name is Derek Combs, and I listen to the Blue Army podcast.
My name is Matty Robson, and you're listening to the Blue Army podcast.
No, I tell you what, I haven't seen that we've got any pictures of Barbara or anything. I think we've managed to fly under the radar.
It's because we were down the other end, the second half. So, we were at the end that we were defending, and Barbara always goes down the end that we were attacking.
Makes sense then. Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, so we managed to skip that a little bit. So, we don't have to worry about too many embarrassing photos other than what was in the group chat. But yeah, obviously, this just did a little bit of the preamble. We missed last week because of everything that's going on and everything that continues to go on even as we speak. So we've got a little bit to catch up on. Obviously, nothing really in terms of football, but there's been an injury update. Sam Fishburne's been swimming around as well. So obviously, we'll let people know what Sam Fishburne's been up to and where he is now. But yeah, I mean, we probably just dive into things, I reckon. I'm just going to double check what episode number we're on because, like I said, we missed an episode last week, so I'm kind of a little bit all up in the air.
I guess 88.
It's 84.
Ooh.
84, yeah, 84. Good, we're going to have to get that episode 100 live show organised soon. I'm going to have to start putting them wheels into motion. That'll probably sync up around Christmas time, so that'll be good. Easy Christmas present for anybody who can come to the Blue Army Podcast 100 show. That'll be easy. But anyways, we're on episode 84, and I'll kick things off, man. Alright, Maras, how's it going? And welcome back to the Blue Army Podcast. You've definitely already heard it's obviously episode 84, and I am absolutely buzzing to be joined by the two men I call the Cumbrian Brain Trust. That's right, I'm talking about Liam Denwood and Will. Welcome back, lads. Had a week off.
Hello.
Yeah.
Had a week off. Some things have gone down over this past week, though. Something, obviously, we'll get onto the Callum Guy goal and all of those things.
I've already listened to Blue Army TV, so it's already been mentioned. I know that.
All right, okay. I'm going to look forward to watching Blue Army TV later then. I'm doing the flip reverse of you. We're already laughing and joking, lads, but really, we normally wait to have a laugh and a joke because we kick things off around here with a bit of a tradition. So that can only mean it's time for one thing and one thing only. It's time for the Blue Army Podcast Joke of the Week. Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to. It's the Blue Army Podcast Joke of the Week. Here we go. Right, the best jokes. I think that I've been getting the best jokes so far have been animal related, so I really hope this works, man. It works better than the last one. The last one was an absolute bomber, wasn't it, from what I remember? Right, here we go. What happened to the frog's car?
Do you want to answer this, Liam?
What happened to the frog's car?
Wow, yeah.
It got towed away.
All right. You kind of I felt like you didn't even need to add the away bit there.
I got
it.
It got towed. That would have been good enough. I mean, I didn't think that was that bad, but definitely, a step up from last week, and we'll move on from that, man. We'll move on from that swiftly if we can. We'll dive into the chunky part of the Loan Watch, which is obviously what Sam Fishburne's been getting up to this week. The young man has moved on to his third loan spell of his very short career. So far, he was recalled from his loan spell with Blythe Spartans, and in the press and to manager Paul Simpson, he's kind of held his hands up and gone, I just wasn't at the sort of level the coaching staff wanted me to be at Blythe. Maybe I wasn't quite fit enough. Maybe I wasn't quite at that level, at least in the opinion, and I wasn't training hard enough. He's admitted to all of this himself, and he's not surprised necessarily that he's been recalled back after not getting into the first team, because what he really wants to be doing is playing, and this is only going to make his attitude worse if he stays there and continues not to play. And he came back. He was a part of a Challenge Cup match. He was on the bench for that, and then he played a reserve team game against Fleetwood Town's reserves. He scored 2 goals in that reserve game, and now he's been shipped off back on loan to Morpeth Town, which I believe he's gone from the 7th tier to the 8th tier of non-league football now. I had a little look to try and sort of make sure the way that the leagues are going. I mean, it's probably the right move, isn't it? This is probably going to hopefully guarantee him extra minutes on the pitch to step down. But really, when you're talking about 7th and 8th tiers, there's not that much that really matters. It matters about just getting your minutes in, don't you think, at that level, Liam?
Yeah, I've kind of lost a little bit of hope for Sam Fishburne. I think if he can't get into that sort of 7th tier team, he's probably not going to get into our 4th division team. So if he there like he did at Lancaster and scores about 18 goals in about 5 games or something daft like that, then you give him the chance to come back. But I don't know. I just don't see Sam Fishburne having the career everyone thought he was gonna about 2 years ago when he was breaking into the Carlisle first team, which seems a bit harsh, but just get him the minutes and see what level he can. Decisions on him.
Yeah, things move really quickly in football. It does seem like a smart move. It's something we've discussed here on the podcast, is about getting him a recall and maybe getting him somewhere else where he can play a bit more football. Wills, is this potentially last chance saloon for Sam Fishburne's Carlisle United career?
I mean, I was a bit disappointed with the step down in level, because I think we were saying when he went to Blythe Spartans that we felt that after what happened at Lancaster City, that we really wanted to get someone kind of conference north for him. He's gone to the Northern Premier League. Blythe Spartans were in Conference North, were they?
I think Blythe Spartans are Conference North National, which is just below Conference North. And then it's Conference North Premier, which is where Morpeth is now. Yeah. Somehow National comes above Premier, which is weird when we're looking at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, Morpeth are in the Northern Premier, which says is step 3. So is that the one below Conference North? I don't know. So they're below. So yeah. So anyway, he's gone down a level. I was a bit disappointed. He's still young, so there's kind of always the chance that he'll kind of step back up again. I kind of like with what Liam said, that it does feel like his chances of breaking through are kind of like starting to dwindle. Maybe just because he had such a good time at Lancaster City, because he was a high scorer before then as well when he was in our youth team. Maybe we're kind of expecting a bit too much from him. I don't know, but we'll definitely keep an eye on him where he is now and hope that it can kind of resurrect his development. He's still a developing player, isn't he? So I guess, there will be setbacks, and hopefully this is just a setback for him.
Yeah, I mean, we'll always keep an eye on him. That's why we started doing the loan watch. People like to know what these young lads are getting up to. And I mean, as far as him playing, he did make his debut for Morpeth on the weekend. Morpeth won a quite unlikely victory against high-flying Ashton United. Ashton United were in second at the start of the afternoon, fell down to third, I believe, after losing 3-1 to Morpeth. So, I mean, he's got to. We all think he's probably going to continue to go on and play games. Let's plough through the rest of the loan report. Max Gillespie played the full match once again for Annans, so things seem to be going better and better for him. He was a part of a 2-2 draw against East Fife, and unfortunately, when I was looking up Lewis Bell's information, I could get the result, but I couldn't necessarily get the starting lineups this time, as it was the Scottish Cup sort of first qualifying round kind of weekend, and it doesn't maybe receive as much coverage as the Lowland League does, unfortunately. But I will assume that he did play, because he has been playing week in, week out for Gretna, and they won. They finally won a game. I think it's the first time I've reported on the Gretna 08 team winning a game. They beat Edinburgh University by 3-1. I mean, just to try and stir a bit on the pot, lads, just to put a bit of meat on the bones. Obviously, I quite enjoyed these loan watch segments of the podcast. I quite get to know what the lads are getting up to week in, week out, and how they're getting on. Is there anybody that you think currently in the Carlisle United squad that might actually benefit going on loan until, say, January? Wills, what do you think? Could you? I've put you on the spot again, so I'm going to ramble a little bit more to give you a few more seconds to think about it. But now, my friend, it's your turn to answer the question.
I mean, just in someone like Nick Ballardo, maybe. He's probably going to get that thing that Sam Fishburne got as well, to be fair, and like Taylor Charters has had, where you step up to the first team and initially you're given chances in the first team. You know, you maybe go on the bench a couple of times and you might get on the pitch. Then the club will look out for a loan for you. So following that pattern, I can probably see him going out on loan. It seems, he's well rated, so hopefully we can get a, conference North club for him.
Yeah. I think we might have to get one of those English Football League trophy games or something, just so we've got some video footage for these teams to sort of have a good look at, and he has a good game at a certain level of football, I'd say. Otherwise, he might end up going to Gretna 08. Did you add anything else there, Will? Did you?
No, but when you talk, because we've talked about the standard of teams that we send players on loan to, I think we are kind of like at a disadvantage compared to other teams in the league in that there aren't that many teams around, because we kind of talked about the fact that they like to send players locally because they can still do some of their training with Carlisle, especially if they're going to a part-time team, and also because for the players travel, because they have to then travel to even like Morpeth Town is quite a way away for a young lad who's living in Cumbria to have to travel to. And you kind of like look at teams like Mansfield or Stockport, and it's like all the teams that they've got around them that they can send players out on loan to. So the kind of loan system, it doesn't really seem to work as well for us, maybe, as so.
Liam, is there anyone that you'd nominate to maybe get some more minutes?
Just the two young keepers, I think, Breeze and Simons, and they've always spoke about sending them out on loan. It just never seems to happen. So if you can find a lower league team for them to, spot on. They'd be my two.
Yeah, would it be enough for you to say, like, if they went down to a 7 or an 8, that they were literally just there to be the number 2 and challenging for the number 1, or would you, is it worth them going out on loan unless they're going to be guaranteed that football?
I think second choice is maybe fine, and I think it's a completely different story when you're talking about outfield players and when you're talking about keepers, because I think at any level, getting them experience in men's football is kind of equivalent wherever you are, because the keeper's job it's very similar in whatever league you're in. So it'd be interesting to see what them two could do at lower league level. And if they're playing second choice, let them show their quality to break into the first team. I don't like when people go and they say you're getting sent out on loan to be second choice. Nobody plays for any team to be second choice. Every single player is challenged to get into that starting 11. It's just whatever level you want to send them down to. So I think send them wherever they want. If originally they're second choice, that's fine, and just let them try and work their way into the first team.
Yeah, I think Scott Carson's all right being like third choice on 25 grand
maybe,
a week at City, maybe. I don't think 39-year-old Scott Carson's that arsed about playing another game of football.
He played in the Premier League last season, didn't he? He played against Newcastle.
You're not
penalty
wrong.
Save and everything.
Yeah, you're quite right. I mean, I suppose like the person that kind of jumps to my mind, and don't get me wrong, obviously we've still got a lot of injury worries at the moment, and maybe I'll be looking sort of to have that second half season loan set up for this particular person, because then I'm probably going to give it away. Then we'd have Senior coming back from injury, and we'd have Barkley back as well. So maybe Ellis could really do with playing some week in, week out football. I think Taylor Charters at Gateshead, that was really good loan for him. Gateshead getting promoted, now being a part of the conference. I think that would be a good level for Ellis to be playing week in, week out from sort of January onwards if his opportunities are a little bit limited at Carlisle United. He seems to be the golden youth boy at the moment, but unless someone's going to get injured, I don't think he's going to get a chance. And I also think that there's potential that Simo's probably going to start playing that Idaho ahead of him. Like, we've got enough coverage, and I feel like it's more valuable in the long term for Jack to go out there and play some first team football week in, week out. So I wouldn't want to lose him as an option, but I don't think we're gonna this season. It's gonna, the balance between what we can potentially get if he gets the match experience and what he's going to gain getting on the bench here. Looking at next season and mounting a real push for next season and having him there as a real option for the first team next season, not fifth choice, not sixth choice, I'd probably nominate Jack to go somewhere sort of competitive, and I'd hope that he could get a conference. I feel like now's the time to maybe cash in on those chips because he has had recent first team football. So there is recent, and also the fact that he can play at right back will interest a number of teams as well, because it's one of those positions where, like we did last season, we didn't have it covered properly. And that's why we ended up having to bring in Mella and Senior to cover those positions during long injury periods for certain fullbacks at certain times of the season. So I think Jack's the one that I've seemed to settle on. Taylor Charters also, big case for him. And also a little bit around the same lines as maybe Hayden, if you could get like a League Two sort of club. And I feel like that would maybe help the wage budget and we could maybe bring someone else in. But I haven't thought about that hard enough. It literally just came into my brain there and then. Moving on to the injury news. Jamie Devitt's injury isn't as bad as first thought. Fortunately, he went down and there was an initial assumption that it was going to be a 5-month injury that he'd be sidelined for, and now the scans have returned. It's only supposed to be around the 9 weeks period, so about 2.5 months, 2 months, that kind of period. So I mean, it's still a long-term injury, but we are looking at sort of somebody coming back into the squad around that Christmas, just after that Christmas period, going into the new year kind of time, and that's always a time where you need players to be stepping up. In terms of other injury updates, there hasn't really been too many. I'll give you the sort of running order of where you might expect players to be coming back. Ben Barkley is still between 4 and 5 weeks. Same for Toby Shaw-Silver. Joel Senior has now been given almost an open window, like 3 to 2 months. Like it's a big sort of time period. They don't want to rush him back. They want to make sure he's got that full fitness. So we might have to be patient when it comes to Joel Senior. Josh Dixon is still around to 3 to 4 months, unfortunately. And obviously we all know Brennan Dickinson is pretty much done for the season as far as any other news. Yeah, that news about Jamie Devitt coming back from injury, Liam, it's a positive sign. It's not as bad as we first feared, and hopefully he's going to be able to come back and hit the ground running.
Yeah, I just hope it's not one of those ones that he'll come back and then go out for another couple of weeks. And it's one of them recurring injuries which he's suffered with so much in his career. I just hope it isn't one of those. When I saw that he was injured, I thought, well, that's him done. I actually thought they'd probably release him because that was one of the big things with him signing, wasn't it? That he would be able to stay fit. So I was really concerned when he was injured. I'm very glad that it's not as bad as what people thought it was originally.
I mean, I feel like it's part of the thing. It's the kind of player he is. He's going to give you 110% every time he's on the pitch. He's going to throw his body around. And when you do that and you've had as many knocks as he's had, and, you are the age that he is in football, you are going to get injured again. So I feel like it's almost unfair to ask Jamie Devitt to stay fit, because if you're asking him that, really, you're not going to get the best out of him as a player when he is fit. Will, does that make any sense? Is that a bit silly?
Yeah, I mean, you get players who've had trouble with fitness in the past and you treat them differently. Remember when we had Troy Archibald Henville and he'd had real bad issues with fitness, and I mean, in his case, we didn't play him on Tuesday night games. They get treated differently in training as well, because usually they're older players who are a bit more experienced as well, so they maybe feel don't need to push them as hard in training. It was in training though that Devitt pulled up, so I don't know whether he just goes full sort of hell for leather 100% in training, because maybe he's the sort of player that can't be told to tone it down. I don't know, but yeah, he did pick up his knock in training, so maybe that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying, though. It's like you can't ask a player like Jamie Devitt to turn it down a bit. Like, he's not like, when you sign him to a contract, you can almost kind of have to accept the fact that he's going to give you 110%. And if you ask him to tone it down, he won't tone it down. It's just a bit of a controversial balance there, if you ask me. But we'll move on to the next little bit of news, guys. That's the end of the injury news. Ex-Blues and other news is what I've decided to call it this week. It's a change in title, this sort of segment. Thomas Hoyley has made a few headlines during the week. First, at Mansfield, he proved that ladders were absolutely unnecessary when it came to fixing the net, and provided an absolute viral moment fixing his own nets at Mansfield. That was a lot of fun to see. And then later on in the week, it was the battle of the giants, as the tallest goalkeeper in professional football took on the tallest striker in professional football on the weekend. Now, did you think, Will, you think when we signed Thomas Hoyley that he would attract so many headlines? He seems to be in the news most weeks with something to do with his height or on some kind of YouTube channel. He attracts a lot of attention, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, when you've got the tallest player in sort of like in domestic football, then that's gonna kind of attract attention, and it depending on the nature of the player, it's potentially it's quite good for memes and stuff. And Holy does seem to kind of like fully embrace that. I think he enjoys those moments, and I mean, another keeper could probably have just stood to one side and let the match officials get the ladder out and watch them, and because they're the ones whose job it is to fix the net. So someone else could probably just stood aside and let that happen. But he's like, no, I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna have a little moment here.
I think he very much knew what he was doing. I think he very much knew where the cameras were on. Yeah. There was a reason he didn't step out the way. Like, he knew he was creating some kind of memories. Yeah. Liam, I mean, at Burton Park this weekend, to be honest, not until one of our friends turned round and said, "Look at the size of him," I kind of don't notice his height on the pitch as much. He's kind of just Thomas, you know what I mean? Thomas the goalkeeper. He's a bit tall, but he's just Thomas the goalkeeper. Do you notice it?
I think you notice it less because he's a keeper and they're meant to be sort of big anyways.
Yeah. Because like our defenders aren't particularly short, so like you're comparing him. I mean, I know when you said about. When he stands next to Paul Huntington, and you think Huntington's Huntington's a tall fella, and Holy towers over him. But other than that, you kind of got Huntington and Mellish, and because they're fairly tall themselves, they kind of make Holy look not ridiculously tall. We were saying I want to see Sonny Hilton standing next to him, but you never really get that chance because Hilton's up front.
Yeah, no, I don't think Hilton's going to let you have that chance either, to be honest.
Yeah. Wimbledon did have a pretty tiny forward.
Yeah, the number 10, there was a moment in the first half, wasn't there, when there was a ball through into the box, and the number 10 followed it in, and Holy came in and gathered it at the number 10's feet, and the number 10 might have made a little bit of contact, and then Holy stood up, and that argument was very quickly over with. It's just like almost comical the way that went down. Yeah, I mean, he does attract a lot of attention. I like his personality around the club, mate. I really do. He's our friendly giant, isn't he? He's the Cumbrian BFG. We like him round here. In other ex-Blues news, after being a part of the radio commentary team for the Mansfield game, Keith Curl has signed on a dotted line to become the Monkey Hangers manager. That's right. He'll be managing Hartlepool. Well, until it starts going pear-shaped for him, basically. Do you agree, Keith Curl, the opportunity to sort of go over to Hartlepool when they're supposed to be rivals? Does that make it a little bit more interesting for you? to go and watch that game. Liam, what are you saying about Keith Curle signing with Hartlepool United? Good one for Hartlepool? Does it matter?
I don't like that he's going to Hartlepool because I am one that fully embraces the rivalry. But I also think I can't figure out whether Keith Curle's an absolutely brilliant manager or really, really shit. Like my brain can't figure out what he is because he goes to clubs and when it goes well, it goes really well. Really poor, like what you saw at Oldham. But yeah, I think he's an unstable manager. I think he can have bits of brilliance, but in a club in turmoil like Hartlepool is absolutely the wrong thing for them. And he showed that at Oldham as well. In clubs in turmoil, he does not suit them whatsoever. He likes to have a bit of control, like when he was at Carlisle. That's where he flourishes. And I think going to Hartlepool, I think he's going to make some stupid comments in interviews, and I think he'll be gone by the end of the season. I don't think it'll go well at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go well. Will, does this add any more spice to you, to the rivalry? Are you looking forward to a potential Curle return?
Yeah, I mean, Keith Curle's still liked here, even though there is the rivalry with Hartlepool. It's not that big a rivalry either. Whether the Hartlepool fans are thinking of that time with Billy Painter. You remember when Painter scored the penalty for Hartlepool and then ran over and celebrated in front of Keith Curle? And then they lost the game anyway.
Yeah.
And that because that was Carlisle Hartlepool as well. It was one of those things that kind of like helps get a rivalry that's been pretty mild. Kind of like, one of those moments that'll kind of like ramp things up a bit, and it involved Keith Curle. So, whether that kind of, I mean, I don't think the Hartlepool fans will really care that much, especially if it gets them out of trouble. I kind of like, you look at the Hartlepool owners, Raj Singh, and he seems like the sort of person who wants to be in control. So, maybe he is the wrong owner for Keith Curle to do well under. I mean, he had problems at Oldham, which was, pretty much 100% the Oldham owner's fault.
Yeah, anyone would have trouble at Oldham. Yeah. Pep Guardiola wouldn't do great at Oldham.
So, like, I think is the manager to get them out of the situation he's in. But whether the Hartlepool owner is the right kind of owner, I wouldn't entirely be surprised if, like Liam says, he says something in the press and then gets sacked or something like that, just kind of falls out with the owner. But if Hartlepool kind of give him the level of control that he wants, I think he's got a good reputation for getting teams out of trouble, apart from that issue with Oldham, and he does tend to kind of like improve teams slowly, and he has a reputation for like not really getting teams up. I mean, got Northampton up, but before then he had a reputation for not really getting teams up. But I'm sure, if he does like he did with us, keeps him up, and then next season they're looking at a kind of like upper mid-table finish, then I think Hartlepool fans would probably be delighted with that after the couple of seasons they've had, to just kind of not have to worry about relegation. And I think he's a good manager for getting teams that sort of stability.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. For some reason, I just don't think he's the right man for that job. I think like what Hartlepool might need is like just some fresher ideas. And I feel like Curle's been around too long. The players will get on the phone to the friends and they'll learn what Curle's like. And every club Curle goes to figures him out faster and faster each time, as it were. And the locker room just seems to turn on him just easier and easier each time. And it is what happens with these managers once they get a reputation with certain players that know other certain players. Like when they even walk through the dressing room, regardless of the fact that you've worked with them before, if your mate who's playing at such and such a place says he's a bit of a nightmare to work with, you're already thinking that he's a bit of a nightmare to work with, and you won't always give him the same shake of the tail that you would if there was some new blood coming in potentially. He's made the right move in bringing that Anthony Sweeney back in his backroom staff. I think that's a smart decision. Sweeney's like one of the longest serving players of all time in a Hartlepool shirt, and like that'll be a popular decision with the fans. But I don't think so. Like deep down, I just don't think it's the right move. Do you want to say something then, Will? Sorry.
Yeah, I think like some players kind of really like that though, because like when Curle came into Carlisle, there's some players that he just doesn't get on with, like Alex Marrow and Billy Painter. But I think we would agree that those players were part of the problem and needed to be binned off.
Mm-hmm.
So, if he comes in and just puts his foot down with players that he doesn't think are putting the effort in, or players that he thinks are acting like they're worth, that they deserve more or something like that, sometimes that's part of the issue. The club has got like a bit of a toxic dressing room. I'm hearing Hartlepool fans saying that they think that there's too many players there just not trying at the moment. And a Curl comes in and he might get some of those trying. And if he ends up falling out with the ones that don't try, and you end up with a situation like we had with Billy Painter and Gary Dicker, then it's probably all stuff that Hartlepool fans feel needs to happen right now. So, and at the same time, I think he probably can get them to survive just because of that kind of like dig deep attitude that he has, and because he'll bin off any ones that have a bit of an attitude problem. So,
yeah, I mean, potentially he could steady the ship. Potentially he could. He's not the first replacement of the season. He's the second replacement manager of the season. And somebody else, Colchester United, are also now officially looking for a replacement manager. They've sacked Wayne Brown.
I mean, Rochdale went even earlier.
Yeah, that was the first one. I mean, obviously, is this too soon? Like, there's 3 managers that have been sacked already. You've got to consider a team like Rochdale, Hartlepool, Colchester. These were never supposed to be high-flying teams anyway. Like, really? Like, do you think it's a bit too brutal at this level? Don't you think managers should maybe get up to 15 games and really... Because there's not that many points between the bottom teams, really. Maybe Rochdale have a case, but, I mean, I'd say it's a bit early to let these managers go, wouldn't you say, Wills?
Well, I mean, I know a few Hartlepool fans, and I don't know any Hartlepool fans who think that the club sacked Hartley too soon. They were kind of saying they could see after just the first game that there were problems, and that's partly the transfer policy, which is something that their owner takes a lot of blame for, which was they were just trying to get players on the cheap from Scotland. And appointed Hartley because I thought that Hartley knows Scottish. He'll know where they can get a load of bargains. So I mean the way they assembled their squad, I think the Hartlepool fans had concerns, and now Hartley's gone. They're pretty much just, they seem to be fairly convinced that this was the right time to do it.
Yeah.
I remember, like, when we sacked Kavanagh, it was September, so, probably coming up to around the time of the season that we sacked Kavanagh. And if you remember back then, it seemed like that was the right time to do it. We'd had a terrible start to the season, and even after, like, 10 games or something, you could see that Graham Kavanagh was already out of ideas.
Yeah, I guess every situation is slightly different. Liam, I don't know if you've got a number in your head about how many games that you give a manager, or maybe is it how many losses in a row, or like how do you gauge it? Is it just purely visual, what's happening on the pitch in front of you?
I think you can sometimes feel when it's over, and I think for a number of these managers as well, you've got to consider what has happened towards the end of last season as well. Rochdale, I think. You see, I think it's too soon to sack the managers. But then if you ask the fans of Rochdale, Colchester, Hartlepool, they'll probably disagree with me, and they're the ones that their opinions matter the most. I think maybe Rochdale probably had every right to sack their manager because they were woeful, except against us for some reason. But that was their new manager. That was their new manager, wasn't it?
New manager syndrome.
Yeah.
So I can't really have too much of an opinion on it because it's not really my opinion that matters in this situation, but I would give a manager more time. Yeah. I gave Stephen Presley bloody long enough, so they should give their managers maybe a little bit more time.
Yeah, I mean, Colchester and Rochdale are 2 teams that have been on like really long-term declines. I mean, I kind of like us, I suppose, but even more terminal in that they're now just getting attendances of about 2,000 at home, both those teams, and they just seem to be like shoo-ins for the relegation battle. So like for the past few seasons, So they're clubs where they just seem to be making one bad decision after another, and given that you might wonder whether are they just making another bad decision here. We don't know who Colchester are going to appoint, but are they are the owners of these clubs just clueless? And is there an argument that like Wayne Brown, Colchester should have stayed because they're only going to go and make it bigger mistake, but now they've got somebody who doesn't have the transfer window, who hasn't built a squad. So I don't think Colchester necessarily started the season terribly. They're like fourth bottom,
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, they're not even in the relegation zone.
They're not the absolute. Yeah, I mean Gillingham are. Gillingham have still got their manager, so they might be next.
I mean, the way things are going, yeah, you'd say so. But obviously, we all know who's going to get linked with the job, Mr. Chris Beach. So we'll look forward to seeing the odds on him when those eventually do come out. In other Blues news, FA Cup action at the weekend with two ex-Blues scoring hat-tricks. First, Mark Beck for Darlington. He just signed for them over the summer. And Luis Alessandra scored a hat-trick for South Shields. More scoring Cumbrians also include Jared Branthwaite, who scored his first ever goal for PSV. So that's his first goal on the continent, as it were, as what people have been calling it. He's only going to add more to his stock by doing that. And then, yeah, I mean, that's the other news. That's all the news, lads. It's nice to see people scoring goals. But Carlisle played midweek against Mansfield, and we don't normally cover midweek games anyway. Obviously, we spoke about Thomas Hoyley and what happened there, but it would go against tradition, gentlemen, if we didn't give any man of the matches for the 0-0 draw between Carlisle United and Mansfield. Obviously, the most talked about moments of the match being that net being fixed that we've already spoken about. Me and Will, we watched the game together, and we kind of had a little bit of a crack about who we thought might be potentially a man of the match, but we couldn't really flesh out enough meat on the bones to sort of, I mean, at least I couldn't. I'm still torn. But Will, have you been able to give a man of the match for the 0-0 draw with Mansfield?
Yeah, I mean, the match itself has now kind of like faded into obscurity in my memory, but I do remember saying to you after the match that I thought I would give the man of the match award to Finn Back.
Yeah.
So I can't really elaborate on that other than I must have thought he'd had a good match. I remember he did attack a bit and had a chance, was one of the players that could have maybe scored. And I remember he was one, obviously, it was a fairly poor quality match and no one really stood out. And I did think at one point of giving it to Holy simply for one single save that he made. And then we kind of like discussed that blunder he made, but was then saved.
Offside.
And then it wasn't offside either, so kind of got away with that one.
Yeah.
So that kind of like kept Holy from potentially getting it for simply for making a save. And we had Keith Curl as well on that match as well.
Yeah, Keith Curl did a bit of match commentary.
I remember him commenting on the save, saying he got down quickly for a big man. But, yeah, so Finn Back.
Finn Back. Liam, have you got a man of the match? Do you remember much from the Mansfield game?
Can't say I remember too much from it, but I remember seeing a few like good statistics for Paul Huntington after the match. So give him it. I cannot for the life of me remember that match at all. But
can you remember Thomas Holy repairing the net?
I can remember that, and I can remember him ballsing up for them to score that offside goal. They're the only two sort of memories I've got.
That's
so,
it.
Yeah, Huntington for me.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously, Patrick had his Matchley sitter that he missed as well. I think he put it over from 6 yards. And
Dennis missed a really bad one actually.
Oh,
in that
Dennis
match.
was awful. Like, and Feeney had one as well.
Yeah, there was. There's a game.
I mean, we are putting together a nice collection of missed sitters so far this season.
Oh God, imagine that compilation, man. That'd be awful to sit through.
I saw one, Patrick's first one. I can't remember who it was against. Thinking like, oh, you won't see a miss as bad as that again this season.
And
but it seems like we Yeah, and it's different players as well. It's not all Patrick. Patrick's had a couple.
they're all
Dennis
missing.
has had one now. Feeney had one.
Yeah, they're all missing sitters.
Toby Show Silver's going to come back and he's just going to start banging him in. He's going to come back and score. All these sitters that everyone's missing, he's going to come in and just start putting them away.
I hope he does. I hope someone starts scoring more goals. Like, I really do. But obviously, I'll quickly give my man of the match for the Mansfield game. It was also Paul Huntington. Like, same as you, Liam. I went and looked at the stats and see who impressed via the stats, really. And then, because I didn't have a great memory of the game itself, and obviously we kept a clean sheet, so I was going to give it to somebody that contributed to the defence in some way. So it was going to be maybe back, but I've gone with Huntington in the end. Right, the official match report for Carlisle United's 2-1 victory against Wimbledon that happened this weekend. Let's go on to it, gentlemen. And as I always do here on the Blue Army podcast, I'll give you the starting lineup for the game. Thomas Hoyley was in nets, back Feeney, Huntington, Mellish and Armour across the back line, with Gibson, Moxon and Guy playing a midfield three, and Dennis and Patrick playing together up front. Now, obviously, there was parts of the match where we were a little bit distracted, lads, but I was trying my best to watch most of it. But really, there wasn't a lot of good football in that first half. There wasn't a lot of good football against Mansfield for the full 90, you could argue, in that 0-0 draw. Liam, are you starting to get a little bit worried that we're lacking game plans?
Good question. I'm not worried about it. I think because like you said, the first half wasn't great, but we came into the second half with a really good game plan. I thought we executed it brilliantly. I thought we were really good in that second half. So I think there is a way of playing football. And you think of the first few games at the start of the season where we played. Crawley was the first game of the season where we absolutely battered them. We won 1-0, but we should have won by a lot more. And you think if we score all these sitters, you look at that and you think 3-0, 2-0, 3-0, 2-0 sort of thing. So we're making the chances. The plan of getting these chances there is working. It's just about scoring the chances.
Yeah, Simpson can't put the ball in the back of the net for them.
No, you're quite
exactly.
right. You're quite right. I mean, talking about missing absolute sitters, Dennis played a beautiful ball into Patrick that managed to bring it down in the 6-yard box, but then just couldn't make a connection with a strike. So arguably, once again, I mean, that was the sitter of the first half. But we did score in the first half. But quickly, Wills, did you think that we're in trouble because we don't seem to be starting games very well? Do you think, we need something to react to that gets us going? Because recently, press comments have also, like Simo said, things like, don't expect the fans to spark things for you, as well. So he is trying to put the attention onto the players on the pitch. And I don't know, why is there not, it's not going down the wings every time. It's not going through the middle every time. There doesn't seem to be too many sort of strong ideas. And we don't really seem to be that great at playing kind of freestyle passing football either at the moment. Is it just a case of confidence, you think?
Yeah, I think, that would explain some of the difficulties in front of goal as well. And when you look at some of those kind of things where we've just kind of had a good chance and messed it up a bit, it does almost kind of look like the players don't have enough belief in themselves. John Gibson had a chance in I think it was the second half though, where he just seemed to kind of get it in the box and hang on to it a bit too long, and there wasn't that kind of sharpness of right, I've got the ball, know exactly what to do with it. Yeah, I forgot what your question was. Sorry.
Oh no, I just said, is it just a case of confidence and the players being able to believe in themselves, gel a bit more, maybe because we do seem like
maybe not 100% that, maybe 60% that, maybe.
And a bit of ring rust still. I don't know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? There's players like Patrick that feel like they're not as sharp as they used to be. Oh, we've lost Liam Denwood.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes players will just have an off time, and it could just be that due to bad fortune, several players are having a bit of an off time at the same time.
Yay!
Hey.
Liam's back. You know, you've got to rely on that old dial-up, haven't you, Mary Port, isn't it? Or
A little bit more advanced than that, but
well,
not much by the looks of it.
But yeah, actually, I kind of thought you might have been doing that on purpose, because Will's filled me in a little bit on your Blue Army TV video, and obviously the next thing we're going to talk about is that worldie by Callum Guy, who's finally up and running on his tally. Let me just paint a picture for everybody first. Gibson has the ball at the edge of the area. He finds a lovely little pass through to Guy, who passes out to the fullback, takes it back onto his right foot, onto his left foot, and curls it beautifully from just outside the D of the box. It's his first goal in a Carlisle shirt. And yeah, I feel like we're up to a flyer here. Liam, why don't you tell everyone what your reaction was when you realised who scored the goal?
Well, I saw it hit the back of the net, and I celebrated. I didn't quite realise who it was. I thought it was. I thought it was Jack Armour, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then Callum Guy turns around running, and it's just the fact that I realised I was standing next to you and Wills. And I thought it was more a thing of, I know what's about to come my way here, so I put my head in my hands and I thought, oh no, was it? It had to be him.
Yeah,
you know what?
People standing around us would have been like, "Oh, is this lad here actually a Wimbledon fan?" He looks devastated.
For those listening at home, yeah, I've never stood with you two at a game before, right?
No.
The one time I have done it, the one time, is also the first time in 3 years Callum Guy decided to score a goal. I just thought
like 96 appearances, man. 96 appearances, first goal.
Exactly. And I've been to all of them, and I thought, Christ, it'd have to be this one, didn't it? I'm very glad he scored it, by the way. I am very glad he scored it.
A left-footed goal as well.
If Callum Guy's listening, we should maybe have like a penalty shootout between Liam Denwood and Callum Guy at the end of the season.
The thing is, though, mine would all be on target.
Are you saying Callum Guy should all be off target?
I think he'll have all the power and they'll all go blazing up a bar. And mine will have no power whatsoever, but they'll all be on target. Between us, we're a brilliant footballer.
I told you he's been dialing it in. I've told you. He's been practicing. He even injured himself dialing it in shooting practice. He's been practicing these. Get used to it. He's found his range. Get used to it. He's going to go on a little run.
Someone's just told him that he's not playing rugby and that you're meant to get it on the underside of the crossbar, not 10 feet over it.
I mean, Wills, what are your memories of the goal, man? It's a great moment for Callum Guy.
Yeah, it's one of them moments where, whenever you see a goal scored like this, it always feels like it comes out of nowhere because, it didn't look like there's much threat, and it just suddenly kind of like, you see the ball just sailing into the back of the net, and yeah, it just kind of like it feels like it's come out of nowhere. I think it kind of was coming. We were the better team, and we deserved to be 1-0 up, even though it wasn't a great half of football.
Yeah, I mean, it was right on the half time. It was on the 45th minute when the goal went in. So Carlisle came out for the second half, and apparently, I started pretty well, but I didn't walk in until the Wimbledon broke through our defence, and I'll describe the goal first. Once again, there's a flick on from a long ball from the goalkeeper that somehow got past Mellish and Feeney, and it was a good finish from the striker, but it's a bit disappointing how simple the goal really was. Wills, is it too easy, Route 1 football? Is it just a classic League 2 goal?
That's fine. It's a classic League 2 goal.
Not too much about it. Liam, are you fuming at Mellish or Feeney, or is that just one of them that happens?
I'm not fuming at either of those two because I don't really think either of them two did anything too bad. I think it was Huntington. If you watch the replay back, Huntington runs out to try and win a header, doesn't win it, and the man that flicks it into the space where Huntington should have been. I feel like if he has run out of defence and tried to win that and just stayed firm and stuck with his line, stuck with the other two, then I don't think that would have been any kind of chance whatsoever. I think, and look, Huntington's an experienced player and he's absolutely massive, so he's got every right to go and challenge for that header. But if he doesn't make it, like he had done there, then he's going to look stupid. And I thought it was probably his fault. But at the same time, we're in League Two. It's a new team. We're never going to go through every single game getting a clean sheet every game. You know, just as long as we score more goals than they do, which we did, then we're fine. You're never gonna keep a clean sheet every week.
No, I mean, after that though, Carlisle's game plan continued on. I mean, it was a bit of a blip, that goal, really. And when you look at the statistics, Carlisle with 17 shots and Wimbledon with just 7, I believe, from the top of my head. But we pushed them for the winner, didn't we? After this, we definitely started going forward more. Patrick seems to be able to, in the second half, find a different role where he was maybe more of an advanced playmaker, coming deep to get the ball and then trying to link play a little bit more. But the difference maker, really, and this is why I wanted to describe the first goal to you, somebody that had a hand in the first goal, also had a big hand in the second goal, and it's Gibson. Initially, the ball was passed out to Gibson, and he kind of had a pretty poor touch, and it was taken away from him by the defender. But credit to the man, I want to point out, he won the ball back and then passed it in to the midfield where Feeney was, and Patrick, like I've been saying, links up the play really well, finds the head of Armour, I believe. It's a bit blurry there, and he finds the head of Dennis on the back post, and that does actually seem like a really well-worked goal that's been worked on. It would be unusual for an attacker to cross the ball into that position of the box, really, unless there was, something set up, some kind of game plan. It's quite an impressive goal, wouldn't you say, Liam?
Yeah, I think, and it was Jack Armour that got the flick on, and I think he's the one you need to point out in that situation, because 81st minute, he can be excused for maybe not running up into the box in that thing and maybe keeping defensive position, but he's ran all the way from the left back spot to get into the box because it was a kind of a well-worked attack. He's done really well to even be in that position. It's a lovely flicked on header, and I think Dennis, he couldn't have missed it, could he? Well, you say that, but I've seen it. But we've been missing them chances this season. But you'd expect him to score it anyways. It's into one open net. But the flick on from Jack Armour, I think, is the big thing here. And him being in that position, he's the one I would give the most credit to in that situation. It's a wonderful ball across by Patrick. But yeah, Callum Guy, you get them goals where it's a good individual goal, and then you get the goals like this where it's a good team goal, well worked.
Yeah. I mean, it was a nice goal to watch, wasn't it, Wills? You quite enjoy that one on the replay over and over again, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I give Amari Patrick a lot of credit for that, because we've talked already about him not looking that confident in front of goal, but he does still at least look confident taking players on in wide areas and getting the ball into good positions. He's still been doing that well this season. And, I think he deserves a lot of the credit for that goal.
But again, really good instincts from Dennis to get there onto the back post. It's his 6th league goal of the season, 6 out of 9. Sorry about that. 6 out of 9 for Dennis. He's absolutely storming it for the Cumbrians and continues to be consistent, more than a goal every other game. So, I mean, that's the kind of striker that you really want for a league campaign when you potentially want to build some momentum, because it's only a matter of time until other players start scoring around him, Callum Guy, and, we can really start pushing forwards.
He's got one. He's got one.
Yeah, so's everyone else apart from Dennis. So, it would be nice to see if just anyone else could. I reckon it'd just take that one more person to go on a goal scoring run for a couple of weeks, and then somebody else goes on a goal scoring run for a couple of weeks. If Dennis keeps it going, that's what's going to push us further and further up the table. Some Houdini shit happened with the league table though. After this crap, we won a game and went from 12th to 13th. It's really strange. Really strange. I don't exactly know how that happened. We started the day at 12th and we won a game, and then
Did we
And
start 12th? Didn't we? I thought we discussed this, and like when we looked at the league table, it turned out we were 13th going into the game.
right, okay. I didn't get the resolve of that conversation, but I can edit all that out. That's no
Yeah,
worries.
somebody came up with the idea that we'd won the game and yet somehow gone down in the league.
Yeah, that was me.
So we were kind of like,
That was you.
But I think when we looked into it, we could see we'd actually just stayed in the same spot.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, still, you know, it's a really good victory. It's a really good 3 points. You know, when you look at the draw against Mansfield away and the way that they set up, they're a solid side, and it's not a great pitch, and it's not, you know, the best place to play football. And we're trying to be a football inside, you could argue. And then against Wimbledon, getting the victory, 4 points out of the last 2. I mean, it's not bad really in terms of form for us at the moment. We seem to have spun things round a little bit, you know, draw against Rochdale, then now we've got a draw against Mansfield, and then we've pushed on and we've got a victory against Wimbledon. So another way you can see it, obviously, is, you know, we haven't lost a game in 3, which our next opponents, they've lost their last 3 games. But before we go on to talk about our next opponents at the weekend, obviously we've got a midweek game in the cup, but we focus more on the league games. We'll give our man of the matches for this 2-1 victory against AFC Wimbledon. Liam, I went with Wills first on the Mansfield game, so I'll go with you first on this one. Who are you giving your man of the match to for the Wimbledon game?
It's going to have to be Callum Guy, isn't it? Like he was even without the goal, I probably still would have given it, because I think in the midfield, I think that midfield of Mox on Guy Gibson is absolutely unreal. Like, it's really, really solid, and you've got everything you want there. You've got defensive sort of player of Guy. You've got your number 10 in Gibson, and you've got like your number 8 box to box player in Moxon, who can do a bit of everything. I think it's such a balanced, good midfield, and Callum Guy showed his worth today. Not just with the goal, but the tackles he puts in are absolutely brilliant. You know, and he's been a staple of that midfield as it's transitioned from the old Mellish Riley Guy to now Moxon Gibson Guy. You know, he's stayed in that midfield for a long time, and there's a reason for it, and it's because he's obviously got a lot of quality about him, and he showed that again today. And he had a brilliant game.
Nice. No, he'll be making his 100th appearance for the club very soon. Wills, who's your man of the match for the Wimbledon game?
Callum Guy, and I was actually talking with Liam just after the match about this, and I think we kind of both knew that we were both giving it to Callum Guy for pretty much the same reason, and scoring a goal is a big part of that, but also recognise that he did play well in midfield, and he has kind of grown into that, you know, midfield this season, because last season, well, we were saying about how last season he wasn't having the best season after, you know, because we were holding him to how many assists he had the season before. And, you know, when we were discussing who we'd have starting in the season, we were considering the midfielders that we have, with like Moxon, potential for Mellish to be used as a midfielder, and Harris and Devitt and Gibson. And so we were actually considering the Guy might actually not be in the starting lineup, but he's, you know, he has been in the starting lineup, and he's kind of started to show his quality.
Yeah, 2 nominations for Callum Guy, and you would have thought I would have gone with Callum Guy as well.
But we'd be wrong.
But unfortunately, you'd be wrong. Yeah, I went for Jordan Gibson. Like I said, he had a hand in sort of both the goals, and he just seems to be able to do that consistently. When Carlisle seem to have weak moments for long periods of time, he seems to be the sort of person that gets us back onto the front foot again, and can kind of spark something. And for that, I thank him with my Foxes feature man of the match. Like we were talking about or alluding to earlier, next weekend's opponents are Newport County, and they have lost their last 3 league games, and they sit quite lowly down in number 19th place on a -14 goal difference. Now, obviously, we're still at the early stages of the season, but I would say by the time you get to the sort of 9-10 category, the league table does start to shape up a little bit, and you can kind of, you know, make somewhat safe guesses about what direction certain teams should or will be heading in. Newport County, just haven't started. They started kind of okay, and now they've started to sink a little bit. And obviously, we're going to do the predictions now, and I'll kick things off because I don't think I've kicked anything off yet this episode. So I'm going to go with. I mean, we're on the up and up, and they're not necessarily. So I'm going to go with 2-0 to Carlisle on this one. I feel like we should hopefully be able just to outplay them. And I think that's Newport County's problem from what I've heard, is that they're trying to be a footballing side these days, and they don't really have the players that can play football. So they've gone from that long ball team that they might have been accused of being a really strong long ball team and a playoff hopeful, and now they've changed the way they maybe want to play football, and it doesn't seem to have worked out too much for them. So I reckon if they try and play football against us, we're going to be a little bit too good for them, and we're going to win 2-0. Wills, what's your prediction for the Newport County game?
Newport are another of them groups of fans who are starting to turn on their manager. I've seen like one comment with them saying that if they don't beat us at the weekend, then they think that that's their manager gone. Right. They seem to be in a just not clicking for them this season. Interesting you point out that they're trying to play football as well, because under Mike Flynn, they were always known as a team that just lumped it forward, and because their pitch was also a rugby pitch as well. I'm not sure if that's still the case, if they're still kind of playing on a ploughed field, but that always used to be a factor in going down to Newport. But looking at their record this season, I think we've got to kind of like hopefully beat them. I'm going to go with 1-0 because we just don't always look like scoring more than one.
Okay, fair enough. I was hoping we could spark on something, like maybe we could get more than one for a change and go on a half decent.
We do sometimes. Obviously, we did, but yeah, it's still difficult to actually predict us scoring a lot of goals.
It'd be nice to win 2 games on the bounce. It'd be nice to win 2 games on the bounce either way. Yeah, 1-0 would be enough, obviously. Liam, what are you saying, mate?
I don't rate Newport County whatsoever. I'm going to go 3-0 to Carlisle and their manager to be sacked the next day.
Oh, big bold predictions.
So that's 3 goals from Callum Guy.
A penalty, a free kick, and a volley.
I hope not. But yeah, I hope he does. I hope Brisbane will.
You still have to score 6 more before you have to run around town naked anyway.
Yeah, I'm regretting that a little bit now. I say that. You say he's about to make his 100th appearance before long, so he has quite literally scored 1 every 100 matches. So,
You keep saying that.
Yeah, you keep reinforcing it.
Did Callum Guy maybe hear your prediction? Is this kind of spurring him on? He's kind of like, he listens to this podcast and he's like, I want to get that Liam Denwood. I'm gonna make him eat his words.
Callum, I'm sorry.
No, there's fire in the belly now. There's fire in the belly. Oh, lads, it's been a really nice episode to have you both back. Obviously, we've had a little bit of a break, and I need to sort of warn the listeners and people that I'm going to be taking another break in the next sort of 2 weeks. I'm getting married soon, so there will be a break, not next week, but the week after. So there's your pre-warning for that one. So before we wrap the episode off, gentlemen, it's obviously time for the penultimate feature. On this day in 1937, Huey Mills became the first Carlisle player to score 5 goals in one match against Halifax Town. Huey Mills, gentlemen, a name that should go down in history. The first Carlisle player to score 5 goals in one match. Now, my question to you guys is, have you ever bore witness to a hat-trick at Burton Park? And if so, tell us all about it. Go on, Liam, buddy.
I don't think I have, to be honest with you. I've seen one away. I saw one away at Forest Green. It was Nathan Thomas's, but I've never seen one at Burton Park. I don't think. Not that I can remember, no.
Yeah. Wills, you got anything?
Must have done.
Yeah.
Did someone? I can't remember any. Did someone score a hat trick in that 6-0 against Oldham?
No.
No hat tricks in it.
Yeah, it's got 2, but no one got more than that.
Must have seen a Jabbo hat trick or something.
I mean, you might remember a time where Carlisle absolutely thrashed an opponent, and it might have been like 7-1 or 7-2. Michael Bridges and Carl Hawley both scored a hat trick in the same game.
Wow.
You remember that one?
No.
No. It's pretty much the same time Carl earned his nickname, Carl the Hitman Hawley, really. And yeah, I mean that's what I can remember. That's what I can remember.
Is that what you wanted to say, really? That you can remember?
Yeah. I knew I had a story.
I will have seen plenty of hat tricks, but it's just, I'd say that they're not so uncommon that they live in the memory for years, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe not. But that's the one that lives in the memory for me. I don't know if it's the most recent one that I would have ever saw either. I really don't. I really can't remember. But gentlemen, I mean, this last segment's always a bit of a shot in the dark anyway. So
yeah, it's just like love asking us questions that we've got like no answer for.
That's it. I like to stump you right at the end. Anyways, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because this has been episode 84, and there's nothing else really left to do apart from say bye for now.
Bye. Wikipedia has a list of